Are you concerned about drinking and driving in your teens? Hi, I'm Nicolene Peck, and I teach all over the world about parenting, relationships, good communication, all through the lens of self-government. And in this video, we're going to be talking about how to talk to teens about drinking and driving. Drinking and driving can definitely be a tricky subject to talk about, especially because there's so many different opinions on it. Teenage drinking has been on the rise in recent years, and so what does that mean? That drinking and driving also oftentimes ends up on the rise. So what can we do to address this topic? In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you multiple tips about how you can talk to your children about drinking and driving. Also, I'm going to share with you a story about my children in driver's ed and something that really made a difference in their lives. I'd like to tell you a story about my children. So in the town where we live, there is an independent company that does driver training for people who are studying for their driving tests. And we decided that both of my older children would take that driver training. They did it at separate times, but both of them came to me with the same concern after, I was like the first or second day at their driver's training. On this particular day of class, the teacher made a statement to the class that sounded something like this. Well, when you all drink, because you all will, just remember not to drive because of these pictures. Now, my children saw the pictures and obviously they were disturbing, but that wasn't what made the biggest impression on them. The teacher said, when you all drink, because you all will. And for my children, that was actually really offensive, that someone would assume that they would engage in a certain behavior. So of course they shot up their hands and they were like, no, we're not going to. I don't want to drink. I've already decided I'm not going to drink. And they said to them, no, you are going to drink. Everybody says that, but everybody's going to do that. Well, my strong-willed children decided that that would be the challenge of a lifetime, and they decided to not drink at all. I thought it was interesting. They came home, they told me about the statement that was made, and I thought that's really sad because that sets a very low bar. This brings me to tip number one. We absolutely need to set a high bar for our children, and we should start with a high bar when the children are young. This really does go to how we choose to live our lives, so be careful about that. We've got to make sure that our children fully understand our behaviors and why we make the decisions that we make about all of the things that we will take into our body and won't, and why. So if you want to stop children from drinking and driving, one of the very best things you can do is establish a really high bar related to drinking as well as drinking and driving when the child is very young. Now I know some people might think, well, that's a little unrealistic, like everybody drinks. Well, in certain circles that's true, in other circles maybe not as much, but you can decide to take on a really educated opinion on what is going to happen with your drinking so that it's not so casual that the children feel like drinking equals the good life. Because hopefully there's a lot more to life than drinking. And hopefully you've established that by making sure that the family relationships, the bond, good communication, and those types of things, education, that these are things that are more meaningful in life than drinking. So really, to curb drinking and driving, we've got to take a really good look at drinking, because what happens is many teens, they will engage in drinking because they think, well, everybody does that, and at one point or another I'm going to be getting to the drinking. And so then what happens is they end up drinking, but they don't want to tell mom and dad that they were drinking maybe yet, so then they end up driving. So this brings me to another tip. Before I get to my next tip, leave me a comment. I am answering this question today because someone left a comment on one of my other videos. So let me know what you have thought of or what you've used with your own children that has helped them understand drinking or drinking and driving. Since we know that many children don't want to tell their parents when they've been drinking, it's a really good idea to make sure that your children understand exactly how you will handle situations before those situations ever occur. So making sure that they understand what types of consequences would be in place if they do choose to engage in drinking before they should, or drinking and driving. So these kinds of things need to be spelled out so there's no guesswork. And also letting them know you're not going to get emotional, you're not going to get angry, you're just going to talk about it and help them make wise decisions. This is the most important thing. One of those things that you need to offer up during this time when they are learning how you will handle it and what type of consequences you might be using if they happen to be drinking when they shouldn't be, or drinking and driving when they shouldn't be, is you want to say to them, you know what, I would much rather know that you've been drinking and come and pick you up than find out later that you've been drinking and driving, or been in a car with somebody who was drinking and was driving as well. I have no problem coming to pick you up and knowing that you were drinking, and I won't be mad about it. Sure, we'll probably have a little talk, and you know what that talk might sound like, but it's not going to be angry. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to praise you for how responsible you were for calling me when you've been drinking or your ride's been drinking. My next tip is probably the most powerful, and that is to teach your children how to accept no answers. So I teach the principles of self-government all over the world, and part of that training involves skills training. So I teach 4 basic skills that parents can teach their children, which actually take care of 99% of all of the behavioral problems. One of those skills is a skill called accepting no answers. When a person accepts a no answer, they can look at a person or situation, such as, oh, I've been drinking and now it's time to go home, and then keep a calm face, voice, and body, say okay, or ask to disagree appropriately, and then drop the subject. So what this looks like in this particular scenario when they are accepting a no answer is, wait a minute, I've been drinking and now it's time to drive home. I've got to give myself a no, and I've got to say that I'm okay with it. I'm okay that I have to call mom or dad to come and pick me up. And then I'm going to drop the subject. I'm not going to think about how embarrassed I would be. I'm not going to think about maybe conversations that might need to be had afterward. None of that. I am just going to accept my own no answer in order to keep myself safe. A person who is self-governed gives themselves instructions, gives themselves no answers, and self-corrects on a regular basis. Those are the hallmarks of a person who can self-regulate and keep themselves pointed toward the direction of their goals. Now, when many parents think about talking to their children about drinking and driving, they think of this next tip, which is to give them all of the logical information. Obviously, you can look up statistics, you can look up pictures of people who've been killed in car crashes because there's been drinking and driving. You can tell them what it does to their brain and how it decreases their ability to focus, and their prefrontal cortex loses some of its clarity, and all of those kinds of things that are really important so that they recognize why they should not be drinking and driving, or even just drinking in general. So this is important information. They do need to know it, especially so that they don't feel like you're manipulating them. So this brings me to my don't. Absolutely don't emotionally manipulate your children. Don't make things seem so heavy and so ominous, because you know what? They know you're manipulating them. And then if they're strong-willed, like I was when I was a child, or my children are, then you know what? They might want to test it. They might want to just try it out for themselves. And who knows, they could do that anyway. But I think that if a parent starts emotionally manipulating a child and talking to them about all the bad things that they're going to do to them, or how their life is going to be over and all this kind of stuff, I think you might be surprised when you find out that that wasn't very motivating for your child to not drink and drive. In fact, sometimes it could do just the opposite. My next tip is to be sure and set the example for them, okay? So you need to make sure that you are the example of not drinking and driving, that you are the example of responsibility, of giving yourself no answers and sticking to it. In fact, there are many skills of self-government that if you apply them in your own life, like being calm when you communicate or disagreeing appropriately with other people, that shows a great level of self-control and self-regulation. This means that you'll be the example of self-government, which will then seem second nature to your children. If you've enjoyed this video, I'm pretty sure you'll love the next video, which is 4 skills to transform your parenting. Those 4 skills do involve the accepting a no answer skill, as well as 3 others that are going to make a huge difference for your children. Please join me there. Click on the link now.